conversation and talk about ancestors being demonic, hell, and the devil, I kind of wanted to actually talk about who exactly is the devil based in the African American folklore tradition and African American spirituality in general. So when we think about the devil in American Christian iconography, we usually think of hell, uh, a demon, a demonic entity with horns and red skin, damnation, and pure evil. But in the African American folklore and spirituality tradition, the devil isn't just a monster. He's something far more complicated. He's part trickster, part evil, part temptation, and part symbol of survival. So who exactly is the devil in African American tradition? So in Christian theology, and the devil, as we know, is known as Lucifer, a fallen angel who was cast out of heaven due to ego and pride. In mainstream American theology, he's proposed as the ultimate enemy of God and the absolutely ultimate evil, a sign, a warning to obey or burn. But the idea of the devil being the symbol of all evil and the ultimate evil wasn't always how enslaved Africans viewed evil or the devil itself. So in America, before the Great Awakenings, which was when a time when the white slave owners sent out illegal missionaries across plantations and colonies in America to teach enslaved Africans about Christianity and force it upon them. Before that, enslaved Africans practiced a mixture of Western African spiritualities, Islamic traditions, and local indigenous practices. Some of these practices were polytheistic, ancestor centered, and communal based. They were also complex enough to acknowledge the moral balance, not just an absolute good or an absolute evil.
Some would even say that was how the trickster spirit was conceptualized. The trickster spirit existed as a mediator between humans and gods. A trickster spirit is a figure found throughout African American and the African diasporic cosmology. It is a clever, mischievous, and morally ambiguous spirit. Examples of trickster spirits can be Eshu, Papa Legba, and also the man at the crossroads. Tricksters are known to bend the rules, expose hypocrisy, and challenge authority, not out of evil always, but sometimes to reveal truth and or to balance power in the midst of chaos. Also, through the blending of some of these traditions and practices, and also through lived experiences, some malefic spirits did come about, like taints and boo-hags, hag riders, and also spirits and entities rooted in local folklore that represented restless and tranquil spirits and also vampiric spirits. However, there was still no singular embodiment of evil, just a world of spirits who tested, tricked, or protected. However, the devil as we know him today entered Black religion through the Great Awakenings through the 18th and 19th centuries. This is when white slave owners set out missionaries and white evangelicalists through the 13 colonies to spread and enforce Christianity upon African slaves. But remember, at first, white slave owners did not want to teach African slaves Christianity, just out of fear of rebellion. But through the framing of African spiritual practices as the reason for slaves rebelling, white plantation owners made it their mission to illegitimize anything outside of white Christianity. Slave owners believed that Black people who resisted bondage, whether through rebellion, spiritual practices, or cultural preservation, were heathens who lacked moral direction. And they used this to weaponize this belief to justify control and portraying African traditions as dangerous, demonic, and inferior. Because for the most part, enslaved Africans, they did resist spiritual colonization and fought bondage through both ritual and revolt. Slaveholders viewed these acts as demonic and rebellious and against divine order. Enslaved Africans didn't just accept that, they rebelled both spiritually and physically. So let's go through the timeline of some of the most historic slave revolts in our history. All right, so you have the Amistad of 1839, the Stono Rebellion of 1739, the Haitian Rebellion of 1791, although not American history, played a big part in why Christianity was enforced through the 13 colonies or the American South, right? The Igbo Landing of 1803, infamous. The Nat Turner Rebellion of 1831. All of these rebellions were all before or during the Great Awakenings. Slave owners used these uprisings to prove their point. See that these Africans are heathens and are under the devil's influence. So they weaponized Christianity, not to free souls, but to control the masses. Okay? Religion became a tool of obedience, not empowerment. These rebellions terrified slave owners, who interpret them as evidence of demonic possession and heathenry, a heathen rebellion, reinforcing belief that Christianity must subdue the African spirit.